What I'd like to do now is explain some soft check tool programming and some learn execute programming for you guys. Very important stuff here. It's powerful in the software to be able to run a program for a repeated measure study. Say if you're measuring a certain part and you're doing 30 of those parts after a production run and you're doing some SPC or some capability, or maybe you're doing a designed experiment where you're trying to adjust some of the factors of your process to see if you can optimize that product as it's coming out. So repeated measures coming out of the Faro system is very, very important. And it's fairly easy. So I'd like to show you some of the hints and the tricks and the tips that I've used for both soft check tools and learn execute programming. What I'm going to do here though is I'm going to fire up this soft check tool, and I don't have an IGES file in the background. This will be just a simple soft check tool or learn execute. But what I'll do is I'll show you a soft check tool that I will use just as this example. I will go up to this icon here, which will be for learn execute or soft check tool. And I am not going to save changes to my SAT file. And then I get this dialog box up here because I have a port lock that's enabled to write soft check tools. So if you see this dialog box coming up, you've got the ability to run and write soft check tools. If you don't see this dialog box, and maybe you just have the code that's coming up now, the foundational code, that's a learn execute, which is totally fine. We're going to go through that as well, and I will show you how to add some comments in areas where instead of putting pictures in, the comment will be just as important. So what I'll do here is I'll say OK, and I'll get into this part of the code. So yeah, if your screen came up with this and you didn't see the soft check tool dialog box, then you are ready to write code and don't have the ability for soft check tools, but only learn executes. All right, so base code here, just the foundation that Faro needs to run the code for soft check tools. The absolute first thing that I do, no matter what, if it's a soft check tool or if it's a learn execute, the very first thing I do is I go to line number 5, setting the fail mode. What the fail mode does is, say you run into some kind of a snag in your measurement session as you're going through this. Maybe you missed a hole and you poked on the button in the wrong sequence, or maybe you went through your alignment and it wasn't correct, or for some reason you need to go back in the code. Faro's default on the right side of the screen here is the option to remeasure or restart the code. Well, if I've got a 45-minute soft check tool, I surely do not want to restart my code. That would not be a very good thing for me. Maybe I just want to back up to where it did its alignment. So what I would do here is say, okay, let's double click on the value column once, and then again, double click again. Here we go, the option to remeasure or back up. I want the option to remeasure or back up in the code to exactly where I want to go. I do not want to have to restart. That's the first thing I do on every piece of code, is to change the failure mode. Okay, and then I come down, and the soft check tools and learn executes work the same way. It will code above where you have your cursor or where the line is highlighted. So right now I've got the end of file line highlighted. So now every piece of code that I drop into this soft check tool will appear above this line. So what I usually do though is in my base code, I will highlight that end of file, and I go to the miscellaneous menu, export data, Excel. So every piece of code that I write is going to have this Excel file coming out. Even if my client does not want it, I still output it because it is so small. It's such a small data set that it's easy to store, and it's got every piece of information about my measurement session in it. So I always put that out. And notice that line 8 just appeared here. It's the Excel CSV outline. And I'm still highlighted on the end of file line. So then I come up and I go miscellaneous, save drawing file. What the save drawing file is that is the SAT file that's being saved for every measurement session. I also do that. Even if I've got CAD files back there that are pretty big in size, I will still save all of the SAT files. And the reason I do that is maybe a month from now, the client will come back to me and say, you know, I'm thinking about changing that datum scheme to this hole in this slot instead of these two holes over here, or this combination of hole and slot here. So the ability to change the datum scheme or even update some tolerances and rerun the reports, I need to have that SAT file saved someplace in my archives. So I will always save the SAT file. Now, this is what I do here. I never let Faro auto-save any of my SAT files when I go through the save of the drawing. I've got my directory structure here changed to my D drive, to my clients, but you've got the ability here to do that as well. You can change this directory into wherever you want to put your SAT files. And then what I do is I deselect autosave, or I enable the operator must key in the file name. This is very important. I've had it before where I've had parts coming to me that aren't in sequential order, and the client needs them to be measured and given the serial number that's on the part. Well, I don't want the autosave there. I'd rather hand key that in. Or if I've got parts out of sequence, like I got parts 1 through 5, and then I've got parts 11 through 15 for my first day, but then the second day they jump back to part 6. So I want to have the ability to hand key in my own part numbers or serial numbers. So I will let the operator key in that file name. So I'll say OK to that. Now every piece of code that I make starts that way. Those very simple lines of code, I change the setting for the fail mode to the operator must measure or backup. And then I run down, I highlight the end of file, and I insert in this Excel CSV out under the miscellaneous menu, export data, and then I do the miscellaneous save drawing file. All right, so those are the basics that I do just to get kicked off on a soft check tool or learn execute.